Hello everyone, welcome you in my YouTube channel. I am Dr. Mohammad Sirajul Haq Faizi, Assistant Professor, Department of Chemistry, LS College, Muzaffarpur. Today in this video, I am going to talk about reactions in aqueous solutions. This is Untitled Chapter 7. Look at this picture. Sodium reacting with water. Sodium reacting with water. So what happened? Vigorous reactions. So predicting whether reactions will occur. First point, forces that drive reactions. Point second, formation of a solid. Point third, formation of water. And next, transfer of electrons and formation of a gas. When chemicals dissolved in water are mixed and one of these four things can occur, the reaction will generally happen. So this point you can predict whether reaction occurs or not. Now, most important reactions for the beginner: precipitation reactions. Precipitation reactions. In all precipitation reactions, the ions of one substance are exchanged with the ions of another substance when their aqueous solutions are mixed. At least one of the products formed is insoluble in water. Look at these reactions. Potassium iodide aqueous, silver nitrate aqueous react together to form potassium nitrate aqueous and silver iodide, and aqueous all are in solutions, but this one is in solid. This is the pictorial diagram. K plus I minus Ag plus nitrate, and then what happened? Changing occurs. Silver iodide and K plus nitrate, and this is solid. So this indicate reactions occurs and formations of silver nitrate is converted to silver iodide. Dissociations. Ionic compounds, metals plus non-metals, type 1 and type 2, metals plus polyatomic anion, and polyatomic and cation plus anion. When ionic compounds dissolve in water, the anions and cations are separated from each other. This is called dissociation. This is called dissociations. We know that ionic compounds dissociate when they dissolve in water because the solution conducts electricity. We know that. Now look at the dissociations, right? Potassium chloride, KCl, dissociates in water into potassium cations and chloride anions. Look at this. KCl aqueous means in water, K plus aqueous and Cl minus. This is separations. So how separation occurs? Due to dissociations of K plus KCl. Copper 2 sulfate dissociate in water into copper 2 cations and sulfate anions. Copper sulfate aqueous, copper 2 plus aqueous, sulfate 2 minus. Potassium sulfate dissociate in water into potassium cations in sulfate anion, sulfate polyatomic. Look at here, 2K plus aqueous and sulfate 2 minus. Process for predicting the products of precipitation reactions. Determine what ions each aqueous reactants have exchanged. Ions. Cations form one reactants with the minus, or anion forms other. Balance charges of combined ions to get formula of each product. Balance the equations. Count atoms. Determine solubility of each product in water. Solubility rules you should know. You know that if product is insoluble or slightly soluble, it will precipitate. So what is the solubility rules? Most compounds that contains nitrate ions are soluble. Most compounds that contains potassium, sodium or ammonium ions are soluble. Most compounds that contain Cl- ions are soluble, except silver chloride, lead chloride and mercurous chloride. Most compounds that contain sulfate ions are soluble, except barium sulfate, lead sulfate, calcium sulfate. Most compounds that contains OH- ions are slightly soluble, will precipitate, except sodium hydroxide, potassium hydroxide are soluble and barium hydroxide, calcium hydroxide are moderately soluble. Most compound that contains S2- carbonate ions and PO4 phosphate ions are slightly soluble, will precipitate. So general rule for solubility of ionic compounds in water at 25 degrees Celsius. Most nitrate salt are soluble. Most salt of sodium plus, potassium plus, ammonium plus are soluble. Most chloride salt are soluble. Notable exceptions are silver chloride, lead chloride and mercurous chloride. Remember this one because that is important for laboratory. Most salts are soluble, notably exceptions of barium sulfate, lead sulfate and calcium sulfate. Most hydroxide compounds are only slightly soluble. The important exception are sodium hydroxide and potassium hydroxide, barium hydroxide and calcium hydroxide are not only moderately soluble. Most sulfide, carbonate and phosphate salt are only slightly soluble. The term insoluble and slightly soluble is important for the beginner. If you don't know, then terms insoluble and slightly soluble really mean the same things. Each a tiny amount dissolved that it is not possible to detect it with the naked eye. So friends, hope this video will be helpful to you. If you like this video, then subscribe my channel and thanks for watching.